Welcome to ITR Live. I'm your host, Chris Hagenow, and we are back here in studio at the Hendrickson Library at the Center for the Preservation of Western Civilization. Got John Hendrickson and myself here again today, ready to thrill and excite you on the gold standard in Iowa conservative entertainment. John, right here from the outset, I am intimidated. You have maybe a record number of articles here. And yes, I said something before we went on air about that, and you've trimmed it down. Now, I don't know if our viewers can see it. We've got the white desk here, but there's probably, I don't know, 6 or 7 articles here ready to go. Plus, I don't know, you've got a whole treatise on taxation here on the floor behind you. So anyway, listeners, buckle in. John's got at least an hour to hour and a half worth of content all on his own that we're going to have to get through today. So I don't know if you need to, luckily you at home can press pause, go take a break, get a snack or whatever it needs to do. But those of us here in studio are just going to have to power straight through. So I will see. It's a Thursday afternoon here. I do have weekend plans. Okay. So just keep that in mind. Actually, I really don't, but that's okay. Yeah. All right. We do really, though, have a lot to cover today. John, you've got an article that you and Tom Sands put together on the budget and spending, which is a subject we're going to spend a lot of time on over the summer and fall. We got some political updates of some going-ons, and want to also touch on the local government Doge committee, or the Iowa Doge committee that the governor put together, met for the first time yesterday. And so we're going to talk about that too. So we do have a lot of really good substance stuff to cover. All right. We ready to go, John?
We are.
Okay. Yes, I do want to kind of dispense with the couple of political items, 2 or 3 political items. We have another entrant into the governor's race on the Republican side. So my friend, State Representative Eddie Andrews, announced. A little bit of a surprise to me. I don't know if it was to you.
It was, yes.
I don't know. I think Eddie is a very interesting candidate. He is one of the most gregarious and affable and hardworking legislators we have. And he's a conservative. So that all of that alone is really interesting to me. He had a announcement at the Capitol, had our friend Gary Leffler there with the tractor, also our friend Oliver Bardwell, listener to the podcast. Yep. So he had some folks there and clearly has some support out of the gate. We'll see where it goes. I think it also caught a few other people by surprise, maybe in my network, but he will be a good voice in the gubernatorial race. Has clearly staked out a position and had before this race on eliminating Iowa's property tax. And I'm assuming residential property tax. I've not actually listened to him speak at length on this, but that's going to be an interesting policy proposal that he's going to have to, I'm sure he's going to talk about it, but also defend and talk about how that's going to work. So any thoughts on that?
No, I mean, I think that will appeal to the base Republicans, and because he outlined that and the pipeline issue, and those are two issues that are very passionate with base Republicans.
Well, I'm also going to interject. I think it's popular with more than just base Republicans. I mean, if you look at the ITR Foundation poll, any sort of meaningful property tax relief carries wide bipartisan support. So that's a good issue, and we'll just see what his plans on that end up being. You know, here's another one, John, that I've wanted to talk about. I'm not quite sure how to get at it, but interestingly, I don't know if it was yesterday or 2 days ago, but Senator Joni Ernst hired a campaign manager. The reason that's significant is there have been quite a few rumors floating around that Senator Ernst might not be running for re-election. She has not yet officially announced that I'm aware of that she's running again. And so those rumors start to take root. She had postponed her annual fundraiser, the Roast and Ride. I think that's going to be in February now, or not February. I don't know where I pulled that from. In October now. But she did hire Brian Kraber again to work on her campaign, skilled campaign operative. So it's an indicator that she is putting the pieces together to run for re-election. But those rumors persist. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if you hear rumors besides what I bring to you here in the office, but I don't know what you're hearing, John.
No, not those. I saw that story on Channel 8.
I think it'll be interesting. Senator Ernst, her last election was in 2020 when they spent, it was her against Teresa Greenfield, I believe, was that one. And it's a really, really large sum of money. I think that was over $100 million they spent on each side on that race. So this is, it's always going to be, a U.S. Senate race is always expensive, always hotly contested. And we'll just see what happens with that. I guess at the end of the day, anytime a sitting United States senator says, I don't want to be a United States senator anymore, I find that surprising.
Yes. Yeah.
And so I guess my base default gut tells me that she's running again, just because they all end up running again. But we'll see. One thing though that I get asked a lot when I'm out and about, well, if Joni doesn't run again, who is going to run for that? And I think that that's very clear, is that's going to be Congresswoman Ashley Hinson. And my guess is there'll be other people I think that look at running, but she will be, should she decide to get out of the race, she will functionally clear the field. She will be formidable. A gifted fundraiser, a very good retail campaign, political figure. She campaigns great. So I think that, I don't want to say it's a foregone conclusion, but if Joni's not there, it will almost certainly be Congresswoman Hinson. So anyway, I had to cover that. So the one other piece, though, the political thing that I know you wanted to talk about is, it's almost on the heels of we talked about. Remember, we talked about Rand Paul,
yes,
and his visit to West Des Moines, and he had some comments about the Trump's tax cuts extension. Well, our good friend Elon Musk, who we actually have no personal relationship with whatsoever, made some comments on his own personal social media platform about his thoughts on the quote unquote big, beautiful bill. What is this all about?
Yes. And so there is a growing feud between Elon Musk and President Donald Trump over the big, beautiful bill. And Musk has criticized it because it is not cutting spending as much as he would like, and it's increasing the deficit and debt more than he would like. And this is, of course, the argument made by Congressman Thomas Massey and Senator Rand Paul and Senator Ron Johnson and Mike Lee and a few others.
Did Massey end up voting for that off the floor in the House?
No,
he didn't.
No,
was he the one? No.
Yes. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And so Musk has come out on Twitter, and he and the president have traded different kind of going back and forth. And I believe, and this was just, I just printed this out before coming up here, and this is from the Wall Street Journal. But I think the president accused Musk of Trump of suffering from Trump derangement syndrome, and then the president also said that the reason he's opposing the bill is because of the cuts to the electric car mandates. And
I'm not buying that one.
And so
I'm just not buying that one.
And
okay.
Then, but this isn't the first feud though between the two.
Yeah.
There was a feud over immigration and.
Yeah,
and,
that's right. I remember
H-1B
very
visas.
early, like
Yes,
first week of the Trump presidency. Yeah.
And but this one seems to be actually getting more bitter between the two. So it'll be interesting how this plays out as the debate moves forward on the big, beautiful bill.
I don't know if I dreamt this or I imagined whatever, but there was some discussion that Musk was frustrated that many of the, call it waste, fraud, and abuse that was uncovered by the Doge Committee, that none of that was incorporated into this bill.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
I would be frustrated with that too, because he took a sabbatical from all the other ways that he is, building electric cars or going to Mars or, whatever else, cutting edge thing he's doing to try and fix the federal government.
Yeah.
And we can't find any more cuts than this. That's where I am completely in line with Rand Paul or Mike Lee or Thomas Massey or Elon Musk now. We all know there's far more that can be and should be cut, especially when we have the right of center party in charge in Washington, D.C.
That's absolutely right. And especially with all the work that the Doge Committee has done and recommending these cuts and then Congress not to do anything is
Well,
it's kind of a slap in the face.
These members of Congress, these senators, were celebrating these things when they were coming out at the time. Remember at the time of the State of the Union?
Yeah.
But that's all anybody wanted to talk about is all of the
waste,
and whether you even believe that it was all as reported. It's for the first time we thought we were getting this candid, behind the curtain look at just how wasteful the federal government is with our tax dollars. And we were fired up and ready to go. We're finally going to tackle this. And if there is going to be any action by Congress to capitalize on these savings, it will be in this bill. It won't be anyplace else. That's just how the swamp works. But yet we have nothing. I don't know. Does this push? The question, I guess, is beyond the personality conflicts. Does this push the U.S. Senate to move a stronger bill out than the one that left the House? Isn't that the question now?
It is, yeah.
Because, this bill is getting done one way or the other because the stakes are too high. The Trump tax cuts need to be extended. They're passing a bill. I don't know. What's your take on that?
Well, I think the president is very popular and has a popular following with base Republicans, which will have a substantial pull on Senate Republicans, and but also in the Senate, one senator, two senators can hold up the entire process. So I think you're right. In the end, we'll see a bill. It's just my prediction is basically we'll see something that passes that's similar to what the House has passed in the end.
I think you're probably right, but any significant effort to make this bill a better effort to rein in spending is one that we need to celebrate.
Yeah.
And I know that many of our listeners want to be supportive of President Trump no matter what, or our congressional delegation no matter what. And I guess at some level appreciate that. But where I'm at, John, and I think you're at, and we talked about this for a long time in pre-production, my allegiance is to the United States of America and our future. And we have to tackle spending. And this bill, as much as it needs to get done, doesn't meaningfully tackle spending. It does add to the federal debt. It just does.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. What I would say I would do if I were sitting there being asked to vote, I don't know. It's tough. You're leaning towards a no. Mm-hmm. We're all over the place on this. But this bill could absolutely be better and be a better deal for the American taxpayer. No question. And better deal for the future of this country, because we're at a spot, and we've been preaching this over and over. It's just not sustainable. And if we can't get it in line after Doge and Trump and all this stuff, when are we ever going to take a real swing at this?
Yeah. And that's a good point. And we're in I think a serious trap, because, if we don't pass the bill, it's in a sense almost a $5 trillion tax hike.
Yeah.
So all of us will be seeing a major tax increase, which is going to be devastating the economy. When the federal government cuts, there will be already. It will have consequences,
right?
Because there's just so much largesse to the federal government. We were talking about all these things that people are protesting.
Let's go, because I want to touch on that, and I didn't tell you we were going to touch on that. But if we want to shift gears to Iowa right now, here's the theme. So I want to set the stage for this. It's spending at the federal level. The thing that is holding up this bill is spending cuts. That there aren't enough in there. What you do with salt and individual pieces of pork. Okay, I'm sure there's a right and a wrong answer somewhere that it's just the level of spending that's not being constrained. Okay, so I think most Republican voters, most people on the right-hand end of the spectrum, conservatives, that half plus of Iowans get it. Like, yes, cut spending. Okay, here's one, this Job Corps program business. Here we are. We're in day 2 or 3 now of protests. Tell me about this Job Corps business, because I don't know. Here we got a piece of spending, but boy, I'll tell you what, as soon as we think about touching it, we got to line up and call to arms.
Yeah. Job Corps, just a background for listeners, is a Great Society program, 1964, part of Lyndon Johnson's War on Poverty, and it applies to basically high school and early college age individuals to provide them with skills training for jobs.
Okay,
and so this is a workforce type program, and there's
no other spending that gets done on workforce development in this state, but that's Job Corps training.
Yeah, and that's a great point, Chris, because I mean, look all the community college programs and workforce training programs at the state level and at the federal level, but they're slated to close 99 Job Corps centers across the nation. 2 are in Iowa, Ottumwa, and in Denison.
Okay,
they're slated to be closed, and basically the protesters are saying, lives are at stake, and this is just ridiculous. I mean, it just for one thing, we could even ask, where in the Constitution does it say Congress should actually be doing this?
It is up to the federal government to maintain 2 young adult job training centers in the state of Iowa. That's the job of the federal government.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I mean, did you want me to answer the question? Because I don't have any idea.
Yeah.
You made a point. Lives are at stake. That was on one of the poster board signs that I saw drawn up within hours that were all, with the same marker on the same poster board, but it was all organic, everything, neatly written. And it just completely just came up out of nowhere. I'm not even taking a position on whether or not those particular programs have a benefit or not. They may have some success stories. That's not my point. But when you say lives are at stake, every single time we saw the federal government DOJ committee try to make any kind of a change, well, what are we going to do? Oh, what to think of all the good things we do with this money? And that's the problem, John, is every single dollar that's being shipped out the door is going to something that somebody is going to say is good value for the money. I mean, the left even thinks that the 25% that we spend on interest payments on the federal debt is money well spent because debts don't matter. But everything, like you can't even make minor changes to bloated programs and somebody's losing their mind. I mean, how many, you made the point of the park ranger. We're making t-shirts for that guy, right? Isn't that what you said?
Yeah.
Or the people at the bureaucrats at the federal level that actually had to go back to work, and how were they going to manage? And we were supposed to feel sorry for them. Well, I'm sure somewhere there's some poor story where it really was a hardship for somebody that had to go into okay, fine. But if we can't even do that, how the problem is unfixable then. So now let's just worry about how we're going to pick up the pieces when the whole thing falls apart.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing left to do from a serious policy standpoint if we can't make any changes. And so I want to shift gears to Iowa. And so the question is, can we at least do it better in Iowa? And so we had the governor's DOJ committee meet. Now, there's some things came out of here that have really piqued my interest. People that have said some things like, okay, I'm listening. Let's try that. So, this is where I just rant and rave and not provide a lot of details for a while. And then you just, you actually tell me what I'm supposed to know.
Yeah.
Okay, you're on.
Yes,
Let's go.
Yeah.
Emote, John. Exciting.
Yes. Yeah.
Fire up.
I had to get my
DOJ committee.
I had to get my notes ready.
There is a lot here to flip through. So,
but so they had I don't know if this was the first or second committee, but there was a committee, a DOJ committee. This is the task force that Governor Reynolds appointed through executive order. And basically it builds upon the government reorganization efforts that she has successfully have done the last few years. But basically what what I thought they had made some good points about property taxes. First of all,
because a lot of this was centered around spending at the local level.
Yes, yeah.
And, it wasn't always supposed to be just local, but that's where a lot of the conversation went.
Yes, and I'm looking at my notes here. Terry Lutz, who is a former mayor of Fort Dodge, and basically he is chairing the one of the subcommittees, what's called the Return on Taxpayer Investment, basically said property tax, and I quote, is the elephant in the room.
Mm-hmm.
And he made some great points. He said, we're going to focus on streamlining local government to ease the property tax burden. What I specifically liked from what he said in his comments was that, and I quote, we do not intend to nibble around the edges. We hope to make bold recommendations to move the needle of efficiency in our government. The way our government delivers services, Lutz states, we're looking for ways to reduce the tax burden without shifting the cost to other taxes or fees. And I think that is important.
That is a very important statement.
Yeah. And so we have seen other states, including Iowa, do this in the past, where they try to relieve the property tax burden by shifting to another tax or shifting to fees. We've pointed out a number of times on this program that this is what we did early on in Iowa.
Mm-hmm.
In 1934, this is how we got our income and sales tax as supposedly property tax relief measures.
Yeah.
And over time, all three tax rates just grew in size. And the other thing they brought up is probably something that needs to be discussed and debated, but it will be most difficult, and that is the consolidating counties.
Okay. Yes. That is going to get that's going to pique a lot of interest. I want to there's two things inside of here. So I want you to read the statement about the Lutz quote that we talked about. Read that again.
Yeah. He says, we do not intend to nibble around the edges. We hope to make bold recommendations to move the needle of efficiency in our government. The way we deliver our government services, referring to local government. And then he correctly notes that we are looking for ways to reduce the tax burden without shifting the cost to other taxes or fees.
Okay, that's it. Reduce the tax burden without shifting it. Because there's another way to say that is spend less.
Yes.
And that's what he's saying.
Yep, absolutely.
If you're going to reduce the tax burden but not fill it back up someplace else, there is that is a very simple formula. That math even I can understand with my liberal arts degree. Tax savings without somebody else paying equals less spending. And that's what we're going for. Because there is no other solution than either changing who pays or paying less. So great. That is exactly what we want to see out of this, is something that reduces the cost of government. When you talk about efficiencies, you're talking about reducing the cost on the taxpayers. There is no conversation at the federal level about reducing the cost of government. That's what we need. If you're going to so if you are someone out there that is frustrated about your property tax burden, the solutions that you need to hear are solutions that talk about spending less, cost of government, efficiencies, not having someone else pay. So that's critically important, and it was really encouraging to hear that statement out of Mr. Lutz. So the other one is and just as sort of interesting, is the county consolidation piece. As a recovering elected official, I can't tell how many times I heard somebody talking about county consolidation. I was a suburban Central Iowa legislator. So the idea of county consolidation there's no negative to that, right? We're in Polk County or Dallas County, who cares? It's a big deal out in rural Iowa. They like their 99 counties. But it was often brought up as like, oh, it's just ridiculous that we have 99 counties. Well, is it? I don't know. We've got 1,000 cities. Is that any less odd? Do we need that many cities? We've got 300 and some school districts. I don't know. Is that the best way to administer government services in the state? I don't know. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I guess sometimes I think people think that there's some huge savings involved in county consolidation. And I'm not sure that there really is. Now, where there may be real savings, where I think the conversation should turn, is what are you doing with the services inside of those 99 counties that are delivered? And we've touched on this before. We regionalized mental health care services. Whether you like where we ended up with mental health care, I don't know. But there are savings that can happen inside of that. There are some counties, I believe, that share road maintenance. Okay, makes sense. You've got places where they share a law enforcement function or a jail. Great. We should look at the services they provide rather than where you draw the imaginary boundaries on a map is where I would start. Because you want to draw a grid with 99 counties on the map, that doesn't cost anybody anything. It's the actual services underneath it. And that's where you'll find the savings. So anyway, that's just my little soapbox thing on county consolidation.
I think you're absolutely right on that. In fact, sometimes you have to be careful when you consolidate. Let's say, for example, school districts, and I've seen it as evidence in some other states where they consolidate school districts. It's a good thing, but you also don't necessarily get smaller government out of that.
Right.
You get larger bureaucracy, and so it doesn't necessarily reduce the cost. So you have to be careful.
Yep. No, that's right. So I am actually optimistic. I think there's going to be some good stuff come out of this DOJ committee. And then what it'll be is those will be recommendations for the legislature. They're not going to change anything on their own. And then we'll see if the legislature wants to pick that up, because we're going to be coming back to this legislature next January saying, you need to do something about property taxes, guys. I realize it was complicated and you didn't get there, but we need to get there. Mm-hmm. And the level of spending from last year, for whatever reason, and we talked about this, some of it justified, absolutely cannot continue at the way it did. The fiscal year 26 budget grew too much.
Yes. Yeah.
To be sustainable at that level. So that's the last thing I wanted to touch on, which is the article that you and Tom wrote together, which talks about this. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot that went into this year's budget. A lot of it that had to go into this year's budget or had been obligated in previous years. Get that. But the rate at which it grew this last year just is nowhere near where it needs to be going forward. Is that fair?
It is very fair.
Okay, so anyway, you tell me what you guys came up with.
So we and we're going to have a more detailed analysis on the budget in July, just to let listeners know if they want to dig into that. But
it's a long summer. We need to have lots of opportunity to write about these things, John.
And so basically what happened is they passed a budget, $9.4 billion. And it was a 5.7% increase in spending over the previous year. And so this has one of the drivers of this is, as you mentioned, there was two main ones. The state cost of Medicaid increased, as well as the ESA was fully implemented. So those were the two leading drivers. But one of the reasons why Tom and I wanted to write this article is that we wanted to address and bring some clarification to one, as you said, that this spending trend cannot continue because, for example, there was $28 million that was spent out of the sports wagering fund that's one-time money, which those things spent on will have to go to the general fund because most likely those will be ongoing expenses. But the other thing is that there's this debate about, are we in deficit spending because they had to go into reserves, about $917 million in reserves to cover the budget.
That's a combined between the surplus and the taxpayer relief fund.
Yeah, right. Specifically, $464 million of that was from the taxpayer relief fund. Now, those on the left, of course, are saying that this is the deficit spending, and we're arguing not. And I know you can speak to this as well because you and Tom were both heavily involved in the creation of the taxpayer relief fund. But and so what we argue in this article is that it's not deficit spending because one, the January we had the 3.8, we accelerated to 3.8% flat tax, and so that is that those funds are being used to cushion the budget for that purpose, which was the design for it. With that said, now we do make the argument that just because you have still close to, about $3.6 billion left in the taxpayer relief fund is not a green light to just continue to spend.
Well, that's right. And I don't want to interrupt you because you're on a roll. But a billion here and a billion there, and pretty soon, you're talking about real money, right?
That's right. Yeah.
But I think the point is, well, there's multiple points here. The left gets it wrong. They're just trying to score political points because they oppose the tax cuts, right? The tax cuts are done. That is the law of the land. They're here, and they're not doing it the way we do it in D.C., where you pass them for a few years so that you can have another free crack at it again down the road. Like, that's 3.8% flat tax is the income tax rate in the state of Iowa going forward. Deal with it. But, this is almost $1 billion this year. And, at some point you'll run out of money. You'll run out of surplus money. But they miss the point is that, okay, you can call it deficit, call it whatever you want. I don't care. It was by design. Cutting taxes means you get less revenue coming into the state because we are collecting too much. And we talked about the lines converging and right-sizing the budget. And that's what this plan is. That's what this plan always was. And there's a reason they debated over the exact, we didn't just like the sound of the number 3.8. It was because they did the math. And it's like, okay, if we draw down over time the taxpayer relief fund and the surplus while we grow into it, that's about where we need to be as the equilibrium number. Okay, that's fine. And I would also point out that the legislature did not pass any sort of action which withdrew money from the surplus accounts. Hey, let's go scoop that money. It just happened because that was how the law, when we did the tax cuts, was written, is that those funds release out of the taxpayer relief fund. My point is, well, I've got 2 points here, John, and then you're going to be allowed to speak again after I go on one of my rants. This is the way it was designed to do. This is the way you do tax cuts. We built up, we paid for them ahead of time. It's almost like, in your family budget, saving up to make an investment somewhere. We saved up the money over many years of overcollection of taxes so that we could deploy those dollars to reduce Iowans' income tax rates. So it's by design. So, okay, opponents of tax rates, just be honest and tell you that you don't like the idea of lower taxes. This whole trying to find some criticism that it's deficit spending, we meant to do it this way, and it's completely appropriate and completely sustainable if, and here's my other point, John, and here I'm finally going to get there and let you have a point, if you can hold the line on spending. Because when we talked about trying to find that equilibrium where you get to that, what was ultimately decided was 3.8, how you get there, how that number is the right number, is you hold the line on spending. Again, we can say whatever the reasons were this year. I think some of them completely understandable. Some of them, I don't know. I'm not going to get into granular $500,000 appropriations. I think some of them probably were not. Or maybe they were worthwhile, but you should have cut some. I don't know, whatever. I've been in the trenches on those budget fights. Everything's got, just like at the federal level, everything's got a constituency. 5.7% will not find you the equilibrium. So there's two paths ahead of us for this legislature going forward over the next 5 or more years. Spend less or find other ways to tax. I'm going to vote for spending less.
Yep.
And I think they will. I think they understand. I've talked to a lot of legislators, even since session ended. They're like, yeah, yep. Got it. We know that, and they're watching this. They've got a forward-looking plan. I actually believe them. I believe they will hold the line on spending to a point to make this all work. But I also believe there's going to be a lot of voices out there say, well, why don't we go raise this fee over here a little bit? Why don't we, get a little sweetener on the side for something? We'll make this other thing work. That's one of the areas where we're going to have to be really vigilant going forward. I'm sorry, John. That was too much, but that's just.
I
it's
agree.
your article, and I just talked over top of you for 5 minutes.
I agree with what you said, and I would just only add is that how budget crises occur is not because of tax cuts; it is because of overspending.
That's always always every time been the case.
And we use the example of, and I always like to pick on our northern neighbor. Minnesota. I mean, that's a perfect example. They raised taxes over enormously, and they spent close to a $19 billion surplus, and in the next biennium, they're facing a $6 billion deficit.
Yep.
Illinois, I just read the other day, is raising taxes and fees by about $1 billion, and they're still not out of their fiscal crisis. So, it's not, if we get into a fiscal crisis or a budget crisis, it's not because of income tax cuts. It's because you're spending too much, and so there are warning signs on the horizon, and that's from federal policy as well as the national economy, and also just needing to be more disciplined at spending.
I know a lot of work goes into passing the state budget every year, and legislators spend a lot of time bringing in people to testify about where all the money goes, and they talk to the lobbyists. It really is, and to be honest, there's a lot of honest, for people that aren't familiar with the process, that goes into this. And I guess what I'm saying is, I think almost that job is going to get even more difficult. Is that instead of just looking at some of those top line budget numbers, and I'm not talking about the budget target numbers, those line by lines, you're going to have to dig into each. You're going to start getting really granular on where this money goes, because the taxpayers of the state, they deserve that level of diligence. It's hard work. And I guess through all of this, John, is I'm trying to say, and you're saying it too, whether it's at the federal level and passing a tax cut package and the debt and the deficits there, or it's at the state level. And I think the state's probably running as lean as any level of government. Maybe I'm just biased because I, was inside of that. Or at the local level, at every level, it's about the spending. And you know what? We should try and find some poll numbers on this, John. Maybe next time we do the ITR Foundation poll, just ask about some voter sentiment on spending. And like we talked, there's always a constituent, and you actually talk about the individual budget cut, and there's always some group that loses their mind. But we have to get back to a point where separating. And I've never really loved the wants versus needs, because it's a little clumsy, because there may even be something that somebody sees as a need that's in one of those services. It's about prioritization and just how much can we afford. And that's it. This is the number. This is how much we can afford. Then we will set on about how we disperse that out all the way through. But guess what? The federal government is way out ahead of what they can afford. They left that guidepost by, 100 years ago. At the state level, you know what? We're going to have to just take a fresh look at it. I think we're still in that range, but it's another reminder that trouble, you've got to stay on it. And the local level, ask any Iowan that pays property taxes whether they think spending is a line or not. I think it's just an instinctive one. They just know. And so it's about the spending. So if you are at any level, if you're a congressional policymaker, come on, we got to do better. We've got to find more spending cuts. If you're at the state level, it's like, come on, let's get back to that foundational, get back to really ratcheting down the spending and really being hawkish about it. And at the local level, that's the only way we find tax relief. That is the only way we're going to get the relief we want. It is not in a magic formula. It's not in transparency measures, although they're important. It's in doing more or doing something with less. It's the only way. It's about spending.
I agree. Yeah. And also, I just think, we have to keep in mind that looking at these other states that are increasing spending and taxes are not solving their budget crisis.
No.
And their services aren't any better.
Right.
And so just because you're spending more money does not mean you're going to have better policy or a better fiscal foundation. And oftentimes it's direct opposite.
Yeah. And that, some of that goes back to some of my thoughts on why fiscal conservatism matters, because what you're doing is you're shoveling more money into the Leviathan and growing government. And that not only are you getting a more increasing inefficiency in how you do things with those tax dollars, but you're also crowding out the rest of the private sector from being part of the solution there as well. It's not only is it inefficient, it grows the state to be much larger than it has ever envisioned to be in our form of government. Maybe I keep waiting for you to pick up the treatise down here on taxation, John. We're 40 minutes in, and all we've done is listen to me rant and rave, and you haven't even gotten to the nitty gritty down there.
Yeah, don't give the title away, because that's my trivia question.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, you know what? We probably should wrap this up. But this is not the last time that we're going to talk about spending at every level of government, and that the only way that we win, and I'm not talking about the political wins, the only way that we win as taxpayers and that we win as a nation and win for our future is to keep spending restrained, to keep the state, the government, and I'm not talking the state of Iowa, I'm talking the state, the government, to keep it restrained from encroaching on every other part of our lives. The only way we do that is to hold the line on the spending and how much money we give it to operate.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. It's your turn. Yeah. It's time for trivia.
Yeah.
Okay, good. We need a theme for it, like a jingle or something, John. I think that'd be very good.
We had a winner from the last time.
We did.
Yeah.
And it will come as a surprise to none of our regular listeners who is the trivia winner.
Yeah.
Okay. Again, Representative Bill Gustoff, the reigning champ.
Yes. Yeah,
so here, if you want a chance to knock Representative Bill Gustoff, he's turning into like the ITR Live podcast Ken Jennings.
That's right. Yeah.
So let's see. What do we got today, John?
Here is another one. See if listeners can identify who said this wisdom of taxation here. I have never viewed taxation as a means of rewarding one class of taxpayers or punishing another. If such a point of view ever controls our public policy, the traditions of freedom, justice, and equality of opportunity, which are the distinguishing characteristics of our American civilization, will have disappeared, and in their place we shall have class legislation with all its attendant evils.
That's profound, and I don't have a guess other than I saw who the author of the book was, but that's good stuff. All right, you heard it there. All the attendant evils with class-based taxation. Yeah. Let's. I
thought that was appropriate with all the property tax.
It was very good. All right. Well, we have overstayed our welcome here today, John. So we're going to wrap things up. But thanks for sticking with us, folks. We think a lot of these are very important topics that need to be covered. So thanks for joining us. Don't forget to share. I say this at the end of every episode, but share this with your friends. Share it with people that you think share our belief on why these things matter and how we should go forward. Don't forget to give us a like and subscribe. And with all of that, we will see you next time on ITR Live.